Good morning, second graders. We are going to be starting a new math unit today, and since I can't stand in front of you and teach, I want to send you this lesson so you know what we're going to be doing. Today, we are going to be reviewing shapes and thinking about what do we already know. Over the next 2 weeks, we're going to be studying geometry, which is really just the study of shapes and shapes around us and how we know what shapes fit in what categories. So let's get started. Let's think about some shapes that we already know. Here's a favorite. A square. I bet that you knew that was a square the second it popped up on the screen. We've been learning about the square for a long time, right? Since kindergarten or probably even before. We know about triangles that might look a little different, rectangles, circles, hexagons, and trapezoids. All of these shapes are shapes that we've learned about and that we know how to identify. That's awesome. So how do we know how to identify them? Well, one of the first ways we learned how to identify shapes was by their sides. How many sides does each shape have? A square has 4. Triangles have 3. A rectangle also has 4. A circle doesn't have any sides at all. A hexagon has 6. And a trapezoid has 4. But here's the question we need to ask. How do we know shapes are different? Well, we know that when we look at them, they look different, right? Well, we're going to think like mathematicians today, and we're going to figure out exactly how we know these shapes are different. There is a math reason. All shapes have attributes. That's one of our new words for today, attribute. Say it. It's kind of fun and it's kind of long, attribute. But it's really not too tricky. An attribute is just traits or things we can observe about the shape. So when we look at the shape, what do we see? Attributes can be things like how many sides does the shape have? How many corners does the shape have? And are the sides the same length or different? All of these things that we've already been doing when we look at shapes, but now we know there's a word for it. We are determining the shape by its attributes. Let's look at the square, for example, and think about its attributes. One attribute is the sides. How many sides does the shape have? 4. How many corners does the shape have? 4. That's another attribute. And are the sides the same length or different? Well, in a square, all of the sides are the same. Those are 3 attributes we can use to determine that this shape is indeed a square. Now, we're going to learn another math word today. You've been counting corners for a while too, but really, you haven't been counting corners, you have been counting angles. Our new math word for corners is angle. An angle can be seen in the rectangle here. If you look at my rectangle, there's 4 yellow shapes there where the corners would be. Those corners are really called angles. That's the math word. And an angle can help us figure out what a shape is. It's an attribute. So let's look at our rectangle here for a second. We know it's a rectangle. It looks like it's got 4 sides. It also has 4 angles. And let me think, are the sides all the same length? No, they're not. 2 of them are equal, and then the other 2 are equal. That's how we can determine that it's a rectangle. We used its what? Its attributes. You're right. Okay, so now we can answer this question like a mathematician. How do we know shapes are different? We can use shape attributes to determine a shape and put them in categories. So now it's your turn. I put a really fun activity on Seesaw for you today to practice making your own shapes. If we were at school, we might use some geo boards, but this is even cooler because it's a glow shape creator. I can't wait to see what you guys create using shapes. So now we know that we can classify shapes by their attributes, and that's how we know what they are. as we continue to learn about geometry, this is going to be super important. All right, guys, I can't wait to see what you do in Seesaw.